paid search, you could spend the money and it not work. Well, guess what? That money is gone. And you could have like 10 articles by now, you know? Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Law of Relevancy podcast. I'm Owen, your host, and today I'm joined by Rachel Hernandez. She is the Senior Director of Content for NextNet, one of the largest content and link building agency in the world.
I mean, I wouldn't bet, but I would bet a lot.
Well, definitely in America. But anyhow, we're super excited to have Rachel on the show. And you know, I got to tell you, Rachel, the practice of link building and creating content is something that I've been heavily involved in for over 20 years in the digital world, and I got to tell you, like it has been so cool to see it change over the years, and it's changing dramatically now with the advent of large language models. But it has been one of those strategies that has been consistent, that you have to do this. And if you do it well, you can have an outsized advantage over your competition.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. Obviously, you're at the top of the pyramid in your agency in the content world. Look, what was it that got you there? Because you know, in the role of creating content, there's content creators, there's people planning the content. Like, what do you think led to your success in that role?
The content itself. So I grew up just escaping in books and literature and took that through my childhood, took that through my formative years. And then when it became time to apply to colleges, I actually went to the New School in New York. And my concentration was creative writing. Like I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to make stories. And all that reading, like I don't know, all that reading over time and up to this day, and all that writing that I just really enjoyed doing on my own has sort of translated into the ability to tell stories, even if it's on behalf of another business that we're working with, or the businesses that I'm currently doing content for. So it kind of seems like it wouldn't necessarily align with marketing, and I don't have an education background in marketing besides some courses I've taken since joining this industry. But it served me really, really well because those communication skills and that just sort of like innate knowledge of how to communicate via words has just been like extremely, extremely helpful in giving me the edge.
That's a really good point, because really doesn't matter what you're talking about. If you can deliver it in the format of a story and make it interesting,
Yeah.
you're going to be communicating.
Yeah, exactly. And it resonates more. Everybody else is like, most of the time, people who are sort of trained to do this sort of thing or are looking at the same stuff, everybody sounds the same. So the differentiator is really like, what do you bring to the table that's a little bit different, that is going to get people to stop scrolling or stop reading and notice?
Give us an example of what you're talking about. Like pick a hypothetical product or service or industry, and share an example of what it would look like for somebody just to do the basic and then
Mhm.
present it as a story.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about SEO even because I've sort of seen the evolution of our marketing since I've been part of the company, because I started on the content product side. And I think this happens a lot, like with businesses or entrepreneurs, is you're kind of too in it and you almost know too much about your product and about your business, that you end up focusing your marketing around like what you think is very exciting rather than communicating to your users what space that particular thing has on their path to success. So I'm a big fan of the hero's journey in general. I know that's sort of like a cliched marketing thing, but I think it's still like super relevant. So like when I started doing marketing at the Hoff, it would all be, like we're delivering this many backlinks and boost your authority and, like this. And like people don't care about the deliverables. They care about the results. And so there had to be a shift in the language, and even beyond like how do you like ranking at the top of Google. It's like, well, what do we actually do? We take SEO like completely off your plate, so we make it really easy. So like a big part of our go to message or go to market messaging in general is like we simplify SEO so you can watch your business grow. Right. And so we're always kind of hammering that because it has our value add. It also has what makes us different in the SEO world because everybody's sort of selling the same stuff. And it also puts the user in the place where, oh, okay, like I give this to them and then I can kind of do what I do and watch the success climb. As opposed to, I think at one point it was like the the biggest link building company in the world was like one of our. It's like nobody cares about. I don't care about that. Nobody, you care about that. Your
Well,
users.
tell us. I mean, I want to hit back on something that you said. You talked about like the hero's journey. Like, explain what that is.
Yeah, so the hero's journey is really like taking your product or your service and repositioning it. So again, it's not about you, but it's about the person who's actually using it. And you kind of place it into their psyche so that they see that whatever you're offering is part of their path to whatever their idea of success is. So they start to really envision that end game and they see you and what you do as an integral part of that process. And that's where that storytelling like really comes in. Because if you can hone into where you matter to somebody else, they're going to respond more than you just kind of saying like what you do and hoping that they can pick up the rest of it or fill in the blanks.
So give us an example of that.
Ooh, okay.
Like, what would it look like in real life?
What would it look like in real life if we did the hero's journey? I'm trying to think of like a good brand off the top of my. I mean, I would say like I think I saw recently what ads like even with like Google and Hangouts and messaging. And I don't know. I think this was actually post COVID though. It probably like made sense during COVID times too. But the message wasn't like, oh, Google like has all of this technology so that you could do this, that, or the other. It was a commercial where it was like a mother connecting with her daughter who was in college, and this was the way that they could sit, look at each other, and easily have a conversation without having to be in person, without doing it over text or on the phone. Like they can have the one to one. So that message is, you don't have the technology just to have the technology. You have it to stay in touch with your loved ones when they can't be in the room with you and keep that connection. So Google's not selling, you know, Google Hangouts or Voice or whatever. They're selling the ability to stay connected to the people that you love.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the process to actually figure out. Like, so a brand, you're sitting there with a product, and you've got decisions to make. Hey, we have two creatives we're gonna put out there on social media advertising or whatever. We're gonna write a blog about. How do I pick? How
Mm.
do I help figure out what are the most important things to highlight in that hero's journey? What are the questions that I need to ask?
I mean, I think it all starts with examining who your customer is and your client. So there's a very different journey for somebody who is an entrepreneur versus somebody who is maybe a marketing manager on their team. So you really have to figure out who your avatars are, and we have a few. And then I think what you really need to do is examine what their goals would look like, and that can involve like listening to sales calls, sitting in on support messages that your team gets. I listen to sales calls frequently as part of my role because I need to know what clients are asking for, and even a simple question that they ask an account exec on our team can kind of yield, oh, okay, this is what people actually care about, especially if you're in like a B2B or something sort of tech heavy or a MarTech like ours, where your users don't necessarily speak the same language. So you kind of have to figure out, okay, what is the language that they're speaking to, and how can I address that and figure out where we fit in to that piece of their life.
That seems like one of those areas where AI has probably played a big role. I know that we've recently done that where um, we took a few hundred sales calls for one of our clients, and we fed it through an AI engine and said, "Hey, classify the conversations."
Yeah, we did. We do similar. We've done similar. that's one of the things that I really like AI for too. Like I
Right.
it like it's almost like Excel formulas for people who did better on the verbal than the math. Like that's kind of how I see it, or at least that's how I use it. Where I feed it a bunch of information and then just parse out, okay, like what is the most meaningful from here, and like what can we do with it? Um, yeah,
But but when it comes to content, I mean, it seems like these generative language models, these generative AI large language models, it seems like it has made a gigantic impact in content creation. I mean, at least of the couple. I mean, it was very difficult. I mean, we had our content, our copywriters at our agency. You know, that was always something that we were trying to figure out the right staffing, and then all of a sudden, you know, ChatGPT and some of the other language models came around, and they could write about things that were highly technical or difficult to understand, and do it very, very quickly. And it seems like it's massively disrupted the copywriter world.
yeah. I think that that's true with a few caveats. And I mean, it's incredibly hard to find good writers, um, especially good copywriters, because you need that combination of somebody who like we say, like understands your user, understands the industry, and then also just writes well. It's hard enough to find somebody who can write well. So ChatGPT and tools like that have definitely like helped bridge the gap there. But we're going back to like talking about how these models work and also having a marketing message that stands out. It's just not there. And I don't
Yeah.
know if it will ever be because it can't do the thinking for you. And I think what's happening now is it's all like a race to not like poor writing, it's a race to like good enough and mediocrity. Like
Yeah.
once content creation is democratized and everybody can have a good enough, it all starts to sound the same and it's all pulling from the same information. So it's even like I shared this story earlier. I took an AI class and one of the things that we were tasked to do was like they gave us like a list of like pretty loose prompts, and it was showing you how you could start like your own business just using AI, and it would do the market research for you, and it would give you some ideas for names, and it would give you some ideas for campaigns, and so you're in it and you're doing it, and you're like, wow, this is incredible. Like I can use AI to figure out a whole business plan, and it's telling me like it's giving me predictive models. It's like wow, okay, I can take this. And then when it came time to show your work with the rest of the class, all of our business ideas were so similar because it's pulling from the same place. And smart people are going to ask the same questions and they're going to pick like the answer that sounds the best. So when you're in there, you're like, this is so cool. And then when you compare it to everybody else, you're like, oh, it's spitting out the same information to everybody. So yeah, maybe I have a great business idea, but everybody who's using this to do that thing is basically saying the same thing I am.
Yeah.
And that applies to content creation or to whatever you're doing as well. Doesn't quite, for those who know, it doesn't quite pass the sniff test. And if you're trying to like build trust and build engagement, we all know authenticity is huge right now. It's just not. It's not there. It's not there yet.
Yeah, it's that we made at least one big mistake with it. I can tell you. So we had this one client, and they had this machine that in the printing world they call it's finishing. So you have a printed product, it needs to be folded or like barcoded or whatever it is, manipulated in some kind of way. Maybe it's for gift cards or something where you take a gift card and you stick it to a piece of cardboard that's printed, and you make sure you serialize and all of that stuff. And we were supposed to write an article about the benefits of like UV
Mhm.
printing as part of this thing. And because UV printing, it's like it gets printed and then the light shines on it and it cures the ink in like a microsecond, and then that way it's dry so it can be stacked next to with no blurring and things like that. And we were trying to write a blog about it, and this was a very niche product. And I remember we put together something and we were talking about the features of like this thing. And I remember the owner of the company like was talking to us, and he goes, "Cord, yeah, I mean, this is correct. I mean, like, it does
Yeah.
these things, but like, nobody that's doing this in the industry would look at this and go, "Wow, they're special." And it's that it factor that you have to be exceptional.
1,000%. And that's why I think people like me who are in creative fields and who are playing with AI and using it a lot, like we're not actually scared for our jobs because we know that there always has to be a thinker at the other end, a strategist, an overseer. I can't think for you, thank goodness. Like, my gosh. But that's a
Mm.
good thing, and it gives us a lot of power too to use these tools. But I think it also will encourage people to put more of themselves into their content and into their marketing than they have before. Because again, when the creation itself is democratized and everybody can do good enough, there's got to be a way where, okay, people are going to be encouraged to do even more. And I think we're going to see that when it comes to rankings or showing up on Google or other language models too. If everybody sounds the same, how are you going to be different? Your thinking, your insights.
What are some exercises that we can do or that we should do to help try to flesh out those really exceptional ideas or concepts in our
Mhm.
writing?
Yeah, I mean, oh gosh. I mean I love AI for brainstorming is fine, but again, it's going to and that's a really hard that's actually a really tough question because I think what we're really talking about here is critical thinking, right? Um, and so I don't have an answer that's like go and read this book or go. I think it's just really engage in the stuff around you. And you know, if you're watching a webinar, you're listening, or you're at a conference or you're in a seminar, don't take things at face value. Like that's what AI does is it takes everything at face value. You got to go to that next step, which is okay, what's my take? What is my take and what do I think about this? And when you want to apply that to your business has a point of view as well. What's my business's take on this? It's not just like if you're in HVAC, like we fix your air conditioners. Like what else do we bring to the table that other people don't necessarily bring? Is it that we're a family business? Is it that we're so large and connected that we can fix your air conditioner in half the time everybody else does in town? And what does that do for you? So there's always kind of that extra element to it.
For sure. Well, let's roll over into another section of SEO that's incredibly important over the years, and that's really link building.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can remember back in the early days, or the heyday of link building. I worked at one place where we were a reseller for DirecTV and Dish Network, and we were buying clicks or whatever. But we figured out that if you bought links, you could really sort of overwhelm the system. And I mean, I think we ranked in the top 3 for about 50 terms related to DirecTV and Dish Network. And we were spending, we would have been spending, three, 400, $500,000 a month in clicks, but we were spending about $60,000 a month in backlinks.
Yep.
And it was just insane. It was like, oh my God, this thing is working like crazy. But then it all changed. How has it changed over the years for you guys?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think the fundamentals remain the same. Um, so I am a very big proponent of organic over paid in general, especially if you're looking towards the long term. And even right now, like we are, I'm not sure when this is airing, but we might be going into a recession. Some things are kind of uncertain. So I think a lot of people right now are like, what do I invest in? Like, what is the best path forward? And I'm not saying this because I do it, but I would go organic over paid any day because paid is per person. It's a quick fix, but it's not like a long term dividend kind of strategy. Whereas with organic, I think generally if you put the work in, you do end up spending a lot less for your acquisition costs. And your clients are also potentially more qualified because they are really actively searching for what you do.
Yeah, it's almost like it's guaranteed to work on some level no matter what.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
SEO will always work at some level. The
At some level.
PPC, you could spend the money, or paid search, you could spend the money and it not work. Well, guess what? That money is gone. And you could have like
Exactly.
10 articles by now, you know?
Exactly, and also, I mean, one of the things that I love about SEO, is that it's also like, oh gosh, what's the word? It's like it grows exponentially. So you have those 10 articles, which are already good SEO theoretically. Those articles are gaining backlinks. You're not doing any work on your end to do that. You have content for I mean, a lot of our email campaigns are based around like content clusters and our what's on our blog. So I have content for my emails. I have content for our organic social. I have some ideas to build a video off of or build a carousel or whatever. So it's just like this really great ecosystem that keeps feeding itself. And like theoretically, if you're consistently like updating your content and you're handling your links, like it just grows quicker and quicker and quicker. It's not steady; it's an incline. Whereas with paid, it's just it's like you throw more dollars at it, you kind of hope it works, and then at some point there's fatigue with the content that you're using, and you got to switch it up and start all over again.
Yeah, it's like I can think through. I mean, just over the years, people who've invested a lot in SEO are in a much better place today than the people who didn't.
Yeah, and I've seen that. Even one of the reasons why I came into this industry, I was in email before. That's how I started in marketing, was in email marketing. And I was working with, I used to ghostwrite for large real estate companies and agents. And I interviewed this gentleman, and it was funny because it was like a interview webinar for this email marketing company. And I said, "What's the smartest marketing thing that you've spent?" And he said, "SEO." And that was one of the things where I was like, maybe I want to check out what SEO is if this guy is saying like it's his biggest driver of leads and he's like an incredibly successful real estate agent. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I mean, in case somebody's listening to these acronyms and they're just rolling their eyes right now, if they're still listening, like, let's break it down for them. So, SEO stands for search engine optimization, and it's really predicated. And please, Rachel, tell me if I am leaving anything out, but you've got content. So, it's the copy that exists on your website, what you talk about. Are you the encyclopedia of your topic, or are you just a brochure? Somewhere in between, right? Then there's the links. So it's like how many people are linking to you or treating you like an authority or referencing your content. And then there's the health of your site. So does your site have broken links? Is it loading fast? Is it following Google search engine guidelines, best practices, things that they want you to do for their site? Because, when Google's indexing your site, if it's 10 times bigger file size than it needs to be, they penalize you for that because they're storing that information. So you're causing them pain by not following their best practices. So did I leave anything out?
No, I mean I think it's been Google up until now, and now we're all like, okay, because search engine optimization has translated to Google because it's had like 97% of the market share of search.
Right.
That is not the case at
It's
this point.
changing.
It's
It's
changing.
definitely changing now.
Yeah. But I do think SEO does apply to these large language models. I don't think it's just synonymous with Google because they've been the market leader. And then I guess one thing I would add too is like because we started on link building and then I think I took that ball and ran in another direction. But Google, I forget their names, but it was founded by two they were Stanford students at the time. And the thing that made their search engine different was actually backlinks.
That's
And
right.
when they were building it, the initial name for Google was Backrub, which is kind of funny, but off of the backlink perspective, because as college students, they understood how important citations were when you were proving that you had a subject that was valuable and that had been peer reviewed. And so they said, okay, well, if we have to use these citations in our papers, doesn't it make sense that if somebody is linking to, in this case, another website on Google, that it's a reputable source? So the entire algorithm was really based on backlinks. Content's been kind of this fairly new thing that's come into the game within the past, I'd say, like 12 years or
Yeah,
so.
I would say backlinks
Get it.
probably were responsible for like half of your search engine results,
Yeah.
up until like a few years ago.
And I would argue too, I think it's very similar right now. And I think when they talk about things like eat and content, again, and also we're talking about the democratization of content. So like you can add a blog post a day. It doesn't really make a difference at this point because everybody can do that. Um, but I think we see that still because yes, like the biggest brands are usually at the top of the search. And that's because they have the most backlinks. They have sort of the most authority around the sphere. I don't know if it's necessarily that different. Some of the rules have changed. You can't build 1,000 backlinks from one website to your site
But
and
but
say,
let's
hey,
talk.
you
Yeah, but there's things you can do. So, like, let's say you're an authorized reseller for that brand. Well, let's make sure we pay the authorized threshold. Like, let's make sure that we get recognized as like an elite provider of that thing. So we're listed in their directory. So we get a backlink back to our site. So when people look for that brand in our area, we show up.
100%.
You were,
And that's why I think when it
huh.
comes to link building, it is important to work with an agency or people who are skilled because it's almost like networking at this point or like knowing a journalist or something. Like you kind of have to have an in these days to get a reputable link back to your site. And that's why we've done so well is we've just had these relationships for 20 years. So they know that the sites that we get links from, they know that we'll deliver with solid content or a solid pull quote or whatever, as opposed to if you have like an intern or a VA kind of just sending 500,000 emails out every month and getting an FU to 99% of them. And then maybe somebody who's new to the game's like, okay, sorry,
You don't
but
mean follow up. I
yeah.
don't think you meant like follow up on that one.
But like, and I think anybody who's like owned a business or whatever, you get those emails that are like, I have a link on your site, and you go, no, I archive it. It's really about having that relationship and that friendship. Um,
Right. So, I mean, I think what you just referenced is the like guest writing. So, if
yeah,
there's like publications that trust you and see you as an authority and you can create good content for them, you can garner some links that way by trading. We can give you some great content that you can have on your site and it's yours. But of course, we're going to have a link in there.
yeah, 100%. And I think it's still a viable strategy. That's certainly part of our link outreach programs. But I would say even more things are shifting to digital PR, which has been like a very, very exciting thing that we've been doing these past few years. And that would be like having people on our team reach out to actual news publications or roundups, and would usually include like a quote from somebody in your business and they show up, and not only is it like usually a really great link you'll get like on sites like the Washington Post or in my sphere, like we're featured on like HubSpot and SEMrush, but you also those articles really get read and you really get that additional brand exposure rather than a guest post that's kind of buried on a
Oh, yeah.
like that will give you authority for sure, but it doesn't pack that same punch when it comes to brand recognition.
Yeah. It's like what you're talking about is a link with trust,
Hmm.
from a human. If you get a SEMrush link, it's like, wow, they must be a leader because SEMrush is the leader.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's talk about. So we are talking about hyperlinks. We're talking about backlinks right now, and those are a couple of strategies to get some. Can you think of any other strategies?
Yeah.
Obviously, you can hire NextNet, but
Yeah.
that's one great way to get backlinks.
I love niche edits or link insertions.
Mhm.
And that's something that we've been offering for a while as well. So, what that would be is let's say you have a website. I'm going to stick to the marketing niche because it's easy. So, there's a couple ways you can get these niche edits. One, you can see if somebody's mentioned your brand or your website or even a product you sell, but it doesn't have a link back. You can reach out and say, hey, I got one from Wayfair actually because I did a case study that involved Wayfair, and I felt bad. Like their team reached out to me and they said, "Hey, I see you mentioned Wayfair. Would you mind linking to our homepage?" Yeah, yeah, no problem. Like, sure, that's not an issue for me, and that makes the content better for for our users. So that's one example. Or you can see if they have like a broken link or an outdated link to a similar resource that you have on your site. So if I'm trying to get a backlink from Ahrefs and I see that they have a link building guide for 2018 and I have a link building guide for 2025, I can reach out and say, hey, I love the article. I think my guide's a little bit more up to date than the one you currently have. Feel free to use it. You're doing them a favor. You're making it easier for their content team.
And when you're reaching out, are you hitting them up on their social media DMs, or are you emailing the general mailbox? Like, how are you contacting them?
I've done both. I will try and find an email, but I am on LinkedIn, and I will LinkedIn message people, not like a cold call sales thing. Let me make that very clear. But I think a DM kind of saying, "Hey," is fine. I'm personally not active on Facebook or Twitter or X at this point, but before I would reach out on Twitter um, to establish those connections as well.
This sounds like the all of the above approach is really the best way. It sounds
Yeah,
you really need to try everything, which again points back to why would you want to do that yourself? It's way better to hire experts to do it,
and
you know?
somebody who, yes, I ran the link building products at NextNet for a while. It is hard to do by yourself.
Yeah.
Um, do not necessarily recommend unless for some reason I don't know, feel like
Well, like, here's an
tenants.
example. Like, you're just told, like, "Hey, well, we noticed that there was a link to our site." Well, how do you notice that there's a link to the site? Well, you have to know how to monitor the entire internet to see if your
Yep.
brand name is mentioned. And
And
then
it's a full team, a full-time job.
yeah, yeah, so you have to monitor the entire internet to see if your brand is ever mentioned. You have to understand the sentiment analysis. You have to figure out whether or not I have a customer support issue or like a delighted customer that should want to link to us and want recognition. Then you have I mean, it's just like steps after steps after steps. There's a lot of pieces to it, but when the machine's running well, the results are phenomenal.
Mhm.
Um, like I'm an investor in a steel business where we do like we build trusses and floor joists and walls and things like that out of cold form steel, and in all of the plans that you get from an architect, it might reference something like cold form steel trusses. Well, we rank on the first page for cold form trusses, and like the whole business runs on that one link
Yeah.
because we're like number 4 on Google for cold form trusses. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And in particular, I thought about investing in the business because I knew that there were opportunities because the industry is behind the curve. I knew that there would be SEO opportunities, and that was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to me because I knew that we'd be able to outgame the system.
Yeah. 100%. And that goes back to that longevity too. I mean, that's something that's gonna pay dividends for quite some time. Um, our link builder brand ranks number 1 for link building agency, SEO link building agents, like all those terms, and we have not had to use any paid media for them for quite because the traffic is all organic and their close rate is insane because it's just such a warm lead if they're looking for that and scheduling a call
I
already.
mean, would you wanna rank it? I mean, that's like a recursive. It's like, it's validating that you're actually good at it.
Yep.
The fact that you rank number 1 for the link building term,
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
and that is actually one of the marketing messages we have for that particular brand. So they better stay on top, or I'll have to change
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about we touched about so here's the scenario. All right. We've got people who forever, all of us, well, we stopped using the yellow pages back when decades ago. And now what we do is we Google something. When we look it up, we go in a search engine, use a few specific keywords to try to figure out like what that thing is that we're researching or trying to find. Now, there's this option. There's been so many people that have adopted the use of these large language models, whether it's ChatGPT or, the ones embedded inside of X or Facebook or whatever, but you ask it some of those same questions, but you might not even use a phrase anymore. You might use a whole sentence. Like,
Mhm.
I need to find, like, it describes a scenario. And now you're getting back, like, let's say you say, hey, I'm located in this zip code and I need to find a reputable HVAC, like use the HVAC example. I need to find a heating and heating HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning contractor in my area. Well, it's going to give you back some results of some of those people. So, how do you get on that list? Because it might only give you three now instead of pages and pages.
I mean, there's good news here, which is that these large language models are still pulling from the same source material as Google. And there's a lot of evidence that says they're doing it in similar ways. So and again, that goes back to investing into that organic strategy for long-term growth. So Bing is the search engine that ChatGPT pulls from. So it pulls from the Bing search engine, the internet, and Bing's search engine rankings are its algorithm is very similar to Google. So if you're doing SEO, if you're abiding by Google's guidelines already, you're already setting yourself up to appear in these different processors in the future. So that's the good news. And I think what we're going to see is I compare it a lot to ranking for featured snippets. So a featured snippet, like, is you punch in a Google search um, for, let's say, content marketing, and before all of the like lovely blue links that say like what is content marketing or the ultimate guide, there's a little snippet at the top of your search that's just the definition of content marketing. And so, like, what we've learned is the ways to show up in those search results is to give like a very, very direct answer, to have FAQs that are structured so that any algorithm, be it Bing or Google, can kind of pull that information, that one sentence really quickly, that infographic really quickly. And then we found really, really great success with showing up in featured snippets. And AI overviews has really been a similar journey for us. And what's nice about the AI overviews too is it links back to your website. And ChatGPT is the same. We're getting a lot of traffic from ChatGPT right now. And we have really just kept investing in our SEO. And it's the same source. So if you're doing organic SEO for your website, you're doing good work for Google, you're doing good work for Bing. They're very similar. And by proxy, you're doing good work for these large language models.
That's really good advice, and that's definitely going to be a big part of how people find things in the future. I mean, literally my homepage when I open my browser now is one of these LLMs.
Oh, yeah.
It's like I don't even it's not Google anymore, it's not a search engine, it's an LLM because it's so much faster, and it seems like we're always gonna do the thing that saves us a couple of seconds or whatever it is. It's just our nature that we're always gonna find that quickest, best path. And there's no question that search engines are not as good as these LLMs at
No.
answering things for us.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is going to be the shift. Like, I wasn't that worried um, about TikTok. Like, everybody was TikTok search is gonna be the thing and Gen Z is doing that. I mean, yeah, maybe, but, like, it's not easier than just, like, punching in a search term, and, like, you kinda have to do a little bit more work with TikTok. With these large language models, you do less work than with Google. You don't have to click on anything. You don't have to pick. It's all just right there. So that's going to be the future. And Google and all these, they're all gonna move in that direction. There's going to be a very specific use case for a list of links. That's not going to be every search that you do.
Well, where can we follow your writings and your thought leadership on this topic?
So few places you can follow me on LinkedIn. I'm Rachel A. Hernandez, or you can Google Rachel the Hoff LinkedIn, Rachel Dexnat LinkedIn. And then I do write all of the content for the Hoff blog, which is primarily SEO, but I just did a whole series on AI content ranking and AI search, like we've talked about. using AI to optimize your content. I do a lot of content on link building because it's what everybody wants to talk about because it's sucks to do and is complicated. So yeah, if anything kind of piqued somebody's interest, there's a ton of resources on that website.
Well, we'll definitely follow you there. And thank you for joining us. And you guys can follow us anywhere where podcasts are found on the Bake More Pies social media feed, as well as the Law of Relevancy social media feed. I hope we see this episode next to all of your SEO blogs.
You will. You will.
Awesome. We're excited. Well, thank you again. We'll talk to you soon.